Hi, this is Pepper. So this video, I'll call the third one in the Inflection Point series. And I think it'll be the last one in this series because maybe, like me, you have felt a necessary or the real shift in this movement already. So to recap, an inflection point is, if we were looking at a graph, it's the place where the new pattern starts. If it was going up, now it's down. If it's down, now it's up. And regardless of what direction it's going to, it's a completely new direction than it was before. And that point mathematically is called an inflection point. But we use it to describe other things as well. And we can use it to describe this particular time in history or in our current evolution as a shift that has taken place. And a worldwide shift, we can say that. We can say that we've all been looking at the same thing, similar data, similar experiences, a health and environmental and economic crisis. So as a world of human beings, we've been looking at the same or a similar situation, even though we've all been affected by it quite differently. So since that point began, which you could say it began when it touched your life in particular, when you saw that there was no way of avoiding it, no way of denying it, no way of saying I can get around it, I can still do whatever, at that point where you were having to pay attention to it like everyone else, that could be your inflection point. And in the same way, there's a particular point where we come out of that. We come out of the tunnel, or we realize that things have shifted again. So we do that collectively, and we do that individually. So collectively, we could say it's a time when the whole world begins to feel like it might not be so dangerous to be out, or the danger of being exposed to something at a critical level is not that bad. And then on a personal or cultural or wherever you're living, there's a point at which your cities and states and families will determine as well as that point that may make sense to you. So when that is, you could wait until there is this official notification, but what I always think is important is that we tune into our own awareness, that we stay awake, aware, and intuitive. And when we pay too much attention to what we are being told, information that we're taking in, whether it's from news sources or governments or health authorities, I think that is all well and in order, but it's really important that we don't allow our own inner senses to diminish, that we don't stop listening to what we hear and know to be true for ourselves, and still acknowledging what's happening without. Because, as we'll talk about in future moments and videos, we are already coming to rely a great deal on external sources, whether it's information from our phones, from other sources, from Facebook, from news sources or authority figures, and all of these are outside of us. And while some of them may be valid, they're not all valid, as we already know. And so it's very important, maybe more than ever, to really pay attention to our intuitive abilities, which are natural to everyone, not delivered to some beings and some individuals more than others, but really to develop these innate senses, to trust them, to use them, to strengthen them, the same way we would do things to strengthen our immune systems and all of the other systems that we empower. We need to empower our own inner resources, because ultimately these are the ones that we will carry throughout our lives. And if we give that up or give it away too soon, it's harder to get it back. Like anything else, like stopping an exercise program or a diet, or going to school, or anything else that we do, it's harder to go back and to rein it in and to develop it again. It's a lot easier to have it and to keep working with it. So we'll talk about that some more as well. In terms of going forward through and beyond this inflection point, it's happened, it's made its point, and what that point is, I think we each have to determine, hopefully for ourselves. How has this time period made a difference in your life? What have you learned or discovered, or perhaps learned you could do with or do without, or the things that are most important, or the things that you did and won't take for granted. So there are teachable moments, as they're called, in something like this, and there are future ones coming as well. So how you went through this moment, how you're going through this moment, think about that, because there are other moments that are coming. Some of them will be health related, some of them will continue to be economically related, some of them will affect creativity, freedoms, our ability to move around the world, as we've seen in other big moments that the world has paid attention to. And I'll talk about that again in a future video too, mostly because I'm trying to keep these videos a little shorter. I get on a roll, and before I know it, a half hour has gone by. So I'm trying to keep these a little bit shorter, but it's not because I'm not ready to talk about these subjects. So I'll make a series of videos for you here going on. Anytime something really shifts, it's really important to look at that. If we were looking at alchemy, for instance, you know, there's several stages in the alchemical process, and in each one of those stages, something happens, something transforms, something yields, something is now ready, has changed form, so that it's now ready to become something else. It has changed its consistency. It has changed how it responds to light, for instance. So in all of these processes, there are actual changes and signs, symbols that happen along the alchemical process to let us know that there has been a success or a shift, and the next stage is ready to be enacted. So this is similar to that too. If you think about it as a process and you look at your own life and see what signs and symbols and changes have taken place so that you are now ready or willing, whatever it is, to look at things a little bit differently, you will find that as you go back to whatever normal is, that it will happen for you more easily, in a more fluid way. So quickly, while I talk about normal, or the new normal, or whatever we are calling it these days, consider for yourself whether what you are going back to is normal or routine. Is this something that you do, whatever it is, on a routine basis that you have been used to doing, comfort zone, doing, support our families, doing, the world needs me to do this for it, kind of routine? Or is this a normal thing that you want to do? This is normal for me to be or say or do these things as you return to another kind of life. For me, normal never has really worked. And I wanted it for a very long time. So normal for me was always what someone else had. Normal was the kind of family someone else had. Normal was the kind of job someone else had. Normal was how other people had a daily life that seemed to work better. And I would call that normal. But in my own life, there was a certain routine that just worked for me, or one that I was able to enable or shift. So be careful with, you know, the idea of normal or new normal, or being in a hurry to go back to how things were. Maybe we don't want to, maybe we can't or won't be able to go back to the way things were. And so it might not be normal where we're going to. So in going forward, we move through something. It's really important in this case that we move through in a direct way, with open eyes, with an open mind, with an open heart, that we move through this place and onto whatever is coming next, whatever will reveal itself to us next. So we're not skirting around something, we're not pretending it didn't happen, we're not pretending it wasn't real. It was real to the degree that it presented itself to us and we interacted with it, we encountered it, and it changed us accordingly. So it's real to that degree. It appeared in our life and we dealt with it in the way that we did. And now we are moving forward. So while it is helpful to look back, while it is helpful to look at what happened after the 1918 Spanish flu, for instance, and compare to that, it's important that that's not where we're going. We are moving forward. We are moving through this event and moving forward. So when we move forward, we can still look 360 degrees around us and not go back to where something was. We can still look with a full and wide range going forward. So what will that look like? A little bit. And a little bit it looks like living out of doors or in communities in some way with the idea of a livable threat. So if you haven't heard that, that phrase yet, you'll be hearing it. You'll be hearing it till you're tired of it, the way all the other new phrases has come to us as well. There is coming a point then when the threats about this virus or situation becomes livable. The numbers become low enough that the governments feel that the cities on their own can handle it, that the hospitals can handle it, that people are now educated enough with or without testing to understand how things are working right now. And so collectively there is a desire to move about as much of an ordinary way as possible with a livable threat. A livable threat means that we are willing to live with the numbers. We're willing to live with a few more people getting ill that might not have happened. It's a way of saying either the greater good rather than looking at the individual numbers. It's a way of simply understanding majority rules in some cases, and that as it's coming, the economy of the world will rule, or the economy will become more important than the fewer or diminishing numbers. And that becomes a livable threat, or the threat of a decreasing economy becomes a larger threat than the virus. So in this case, the livable threat will be the economy over anything else. You'll hear me use that term in other videos later on when I talk about whether it's 5G or climate change or a few other things. There are things coming up that will also require that term or a deeper understanding or acknowledging or accepting of the term livable threat. And of course, that may mean different things to different people, depending on where you are, where you fall on that scale of accepting it or not. There will be things in place. There will be some kinds of permits and guidelines to accommodate that. Digital permits that can be associated with your phone, with your employer, different places that you can access, different places that you can go to if you have this digital permit, where you can't go if you don't have it. Not so much to discriminate in the beginning, but completely based on health. So you can look for these kind of ideas to be brought forward as well, different advisories for some people. So this is how it will be determined who and what economically and in health wise will determine what version of normal it looks like. And that will depend a lot on where you're living and how you're living and what your needs are and what your desires are. For the most part, it's going to go somewhat gently. So no one is going to be forced into doing or going somewhere where they're not ready, at least as I can see. So going forward then, a livable threat beyond this inflection point. So I'll be back later on or soon, and talking a little bit more about some other things that are coming up and what that might look like and why. And I hope to explain that to you to the degree that I'm able to see it anyway. So bye for now, and more soon.